Jan Logie.
Rise to take a call on this bill in the part 3, which is looking at the changes to the family tax credit. And I would like to draw heavily on my contribution from the submission from Susan St John and the Child Poverty Action Group, which was supported by other submitters, and at least in part. And note that she pointed out that this aspect of the bill was where the government decided to increase the discriminatory aspects of working for families. That we've already had a case that Child Poverty Action took to the Court of Appeal that established that working for families has elements that are discriminatory against children whose parents are out of the paid workforce. And this bill increases that discrimination because the aspects of working for family that are available to families to children whose parents are not in work have not been touched in this aspect of the bill. And so what it does is that it extends an extra $12.50 to not to all poor children, only to those whose parents are in a 20 plus hours of paid work a week. And it will increase their income from $60 to $72.50, which is just an inflation adjustment. In actual fact, she told us. So while the government is telling us, here they are, targeting their support, helping these families out, this is an inflation adjustment. This is the extent of this government's support for struggling working families and child poverty. And so that this minimum family tax credit will only apply to 3,500 families. Hardly a significant number when we're looking at the scale of child poverty in this country. And I really do think that it needs to be pointed out that, say, Jonathan Boston did say that it may have a positive, and that is underlined may, positive aspect on child income poverty rates and deprivation rates, but the impact is likely to be very marginal, again, underlined. And, you know, so that's a problem. This is doing nothing really to address the absolute real tragedy that is going on in our country at the moment. But there's a part of this that I think galls me even more and made it very difficult for me in terms of our vote. And that is that the government is taking from poor families to be able to deliver this inflation adjustment. Because what they're doing is that they are changing so let me check and I get the details of right, is that so Child Poverty Action was saying that by their calculations, a family earning the minimum wage and working 60 hours a week on $46,000 a week are about to be $2,225 a year worse off in real terms by these provisions. So here we are, $12.50 a week to children, extra to children who have parents who are working, entrenching inequality and discrimination, and just a small amount of help. And that money is being taken from families who are also struggling. To me, that is actually just unconscionable. It doesn't make sense in terms of ensuring everyone in our society is able to participate. And I think also if you look at the wider perspective in terms of New Zealand's support for working families, and which is supposedly a large part of this government's policy intent is to get people into work. And you need to recognise that there was a 2011 OECD report that found that New Zealand's childcare subsidies are the most tightly targeted towards low-income families of all 30 developed nations, and that we have no tax-free threshold for low-income earners. And that in the 2012 OECD report, they found that a Kiwi couple with 2 kids aged 2 and 3, where one parent earned the average wage and the other earned 2/3 of the average wage, that they would lose 97.9 cents out of every extra dollar, Mr. Chair.
Jan Logie.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. From the second earner's wage via a combination of childcare costs, reduced tax credits, which are being changed in this bill, and subsidies, and higher taxes excluding petrol and other costs. So effectively, taking in the other costs of work, that person is working for less than nothing. Now, this is a government's policies who supposedly supports paid employment. And this is the worst outcome for any of the 34 countries listed, and compared with an OECD average of 57 cents in the dollar. Did you get that? 97.9 cents in the dollar compared to the OECD average of 57 cents in the dollar. This is this government's approach to supporting our families. And these things, rather than the government focusing on making that better, of supporting these families and rewarding work where it's appropriate and making sure that we have a strong safety net, actually they've made things worse. Because the working for family tax credits used to be indexed to the CPI. But since the law change was made in 2011, families have had to wait until inflation reaches 5% before there's an increase to their working for families. And this has already saved the government. It's estimated to be over $1.1 billion. My understanding is that's significantly more than the cost of this entire child hardship package. So when the government is telling us they care about child poverty, they care about the fact that there are children in this country without shoes, without 3 meals a day, without a bed of their own, without the family being able to buy them presents on their birthday, children who are worried and excluded at school and can't afford to go on school trips or attend any events. When the government tells us they care about that, actually we need to look at what they're prioritising. And if this bill is their main initiative and they're spending less on it than they've saved in the changes to working for families, then I've got to say, Mr. Chair, I'm struggling to find it credible. And I really am very clear this is not delivering on what New Zealanders have told us they want for their children. The outpouring of grief, I think you could describe it from New Zealanders in response to the campaigns around child poverty and even feeding children school lunches, which wouldn't have been very expensive either, and somehow this government couldn't bring themselves to support, has been clear. New Zealanders want a society where every single child has the opportunities to be able to succeed in life. This bill is not delivering that. This bill is ensuring that those barriers are kept in front of our children and is preventing many from succeeding. And it is entrenching inequalities, sadly, and discrimination, which is not justified by any basis, from my perspective.